Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Mujibeda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sabhavedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tomagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Verse 67 at the bottom of page 282. Both of them are indeed mutually perceived. Thus, either of them exists. So he means to say the mind and the world. No matter if it is the subtle world of the subtle lokas or the physical, dense, material world we perceive in the awakened state. Those are both. The mind, the instrument by which I perceive the world. Now, both of them are mutually perceived, okay? So when I perceive the world, I must perceive the mind simultaneously. When I don't perceive the world, I don't have my mind because it was suppressed during the deep sleep state. But otherwise, I will be a dreamer, I'm going to be a waker, and I will be perceiving the instrument and through which I perceive the world. So if these two principles, the mind and the world, they are dependent, they are mutually dependent, one depends on the other, they happen simultaneously. So if does either of them exist at all? No, okay? For different reasons. One of them is that it's not always there, it changes, and it is dependent, and it's not something free and independent. So you need one to exist as the other. The world is the mind is the world. So therefore it says, are they real? Do they really exist? No. It said no, both of them are indefinable. And then we have again this concept of beyond the human comprehension, intellectual comprehension. How does this happen? Nobody knows. It's just a reflection that occurs within the mind due to a certain power. We can understand it more objectively, more objectively, watching the dream state from the standpoint of the awaker, because we see that somehow the mind reflects the dream universe and the dreamer, and then the dreamer and the dream universe is nothing but the mind. So the dream universe and the dreamer depends on the mind, and the mind, on the other hand, also depends on the dream world, the mind in that state, because if the dream goes, the mind of the dreamer also goes. So both of them are indefinable. Each one of them, those principles, grasped because of the notion of otherness. Otherness is nothing but the fundamental duality, aham and midam. Aham, idam or midam? Sometimes I confuse. Tell me, Lynn. Idam.
Idam is this, Adam is that.
Okay, good. So there are two others. Aham, idam, adam. Good. So this sense of I, the mind, and the world of objects I experience out there is the base. This notion of duality as reality. It gives a sense of reality to the mind in the world. So, and then we looked a little bit in the dream. The dream is very much a part of the dream experience, everything in the dream world, which is a dream body in the mind. In the dream, it all appears to be real. Similarly, is the case with the waking state. The dreamer travels and have experience of all kinds of things, including other living beings, other than themselves. The sense of otherness, Idam and Adam is there, but he or she does not know that they are his own creations or projections, the mind reflecting all of that. So Gaudapada describes the different types of living beings based on the scriptures' clarifications as all the living beings with an intervention. And then in the previous verse, he was talking about living beings created by the different environments, eggs, moisture, and so on, things like that. And then here he comes back to explain a little bit of that. Gaudapada describes not only the things that we experience as inert objects, but also living jiva objects. There are all kinds of objects. Some of them are sentient objects. They are living beings. And then there are some born out of a microorganism by humid atmosphere and eggs, the womb of certain animals. The plants have their own way to further reproduce from the ground. And the dreamer experiences these beings as well in the dream state, things which are other than himself or herself. When the dreamer experiences varieties of objects, the dreamer has an internal thought of responding to each one of those experiences that is happening out there. So the object and the thought about objects, they are always they are faithful to one another, let's say, okay? So with respect to the dream body, the dream consists of two components: the external dream object and the internal mind of the dreamer. But as we know, after waking up, the awaker knows that the object is unreal in the dream. Both the objects and the thoughts are considered, but in the dream, both are real. So upon awakening, the mind of the dreamer, which is the dreamer and the dream world, is considered to be unreal. So again, we go back to this analogy or example or parallel between these two states. And then in the awakened state, we have thoughts and objects. Let me change the color of this one here. No, why not? Sorry, just a moment. Why it's not happening here? Well, I'm gonna have to keep it this way. Don't know why. Okay. On awakening state, both of them are known as mithya, but the dreamer experienced both in the dream are known as mithya. But on awakening, both of them are known as mithya, but the dreamer experienced both, the dreamer has experienced both of them in the dream as satya. Now, the object is called drishyam, and the thought is called chitam. So the thought and the object, they happen simultaneously. This is the teaching here. And a lot of people has developed philosophies. I don't know if it has always been there, but in the New Age movement, I saw many of these New Age neo-gurus saying that the consciousness and the objects, they depend upon one another. They They appear simultaneously. They are born of one another because of this subtle superimposition of mitya, the mind, into satya, consciousness. So this is all over the place, this superimposition. So all the dream objects put together is called svapna prapancha, the dream world. And all the dream thoughts put together is called svapna chitam. Right? So the mind of the dream world, if we could say that there is such a thing like that. But all the thoughts of the dream suborder of reality, let's say, has a technical name. No? I'm dreaming this thing. It must be coming from your dream that jumped into my mind in the middle of the night. A husband and wife may say that. I had a dream here that most probably belonged to you. Why? Because it's all Svapna Chitan. I should not have had that kind of dream. Yeah? No, it comes from you. It comes from the awaker. Awakers holds those thoughts, those impressions. They get projected by the power of Maya to produce the dream world and the thoughts in respect to everything that is being experienced, including narratives, interpretations, and, after waking up, the awaker realized that there was no svapna prapancha, there was no dream world, and there was no dream mind. Both of them do not exist separate from consciousness, the true witnessing observer. Yeah? Gaudapada extends this to the awakened state as always all objects of the world, Jagrata, Drishyam, and all the corresponding thoughts projected by the same Maya. I, the observer, I am experiencing both thoughts and the objects of this world. I, consciousness, as the witnessing aspect of consciousness, I am experiencing. Then again, this I, the witnessing consciousness is Chaitanya. I forgot the name in Sanskrit. This witnessing consciousness, okay, it appears as an experience entity in a very subtle manner. Consciousness as Satchitananda is not an experience entity, but it appears as knowingness, as pure knowledge. Sagadatta used to call that, unfortunately, as pure consciousness. No, it's a pure mind, a sattvic mind. It's just witnessing things, not identifying with the objects, it's the experience and the thoughts and narratives and concepts and in respect to that object of experience. I, the observer, am the experiencing is Shakti Chaitanya, Shakti Chaitanya, the expression, witnessing consciousness. So this witnessing consciousness witness both this physical material world of objects and the thoughts in respect to those objects. All of that is due to this incomprehensible Maya power, Maya Shakti. Okay. Okay. Shakti, if sometimes I make confusion with the Sanskrit, so you just understand I'm not a student of Sanskrit, and the main thing is to extract the meaning, the concept behind all of that. When I say I am free, the mind should not be included in that freedom. Uh-oh. So what is there? If the mind is the one experiencing freedom, so when I say I am free, so it means to say the mind is not free. Then what is free? Huh? So what is that, Swamiji? So you keep motivating us to look for freedom, and now saying that the mind, being the only experience entity, will never be free. Is that what you say? Yes and no. When I say that I am free, the mind should not be included. I use the mind, but it should not be included. The mind is part of the waking world, the same way the mind of the dream is part of the dream world. The mind is happening with the world. The mind in its nature is thought, feelings, sensations, okay? But the mind has another aspect, okay, which is the witnessing consciousness, okay? The reflect pure consciousness, which is witnessing what? The mind in its thought, concepts, narratives, interpretations. There is something deeper than that. That is what Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, that is pure consciousness. But it is an experiencing entity. Yes, it does appear as an experienced entity, but the mind in its grosser level, it is what it is. But let's see what Swami says. When I say that I'm free, the mind should not be included. I use the mind, but it should not be included. The mind is part of the awakened world, is Mitya. I cannot have full control over its thoughts and the object that produce those thoughts. The same way I have no control over the condition of my physical body. When I say I'm free, I should never include the mind and the body. I am free of the body-mind-sense complex. I am consciousness. The body-mind-sense complex is never completely free, but the body-mind-sense complex is purified to a certain extent that it enjoys a sense of the freedom, which is gained by a shift of identity from the body-mind-sense complex to consciousness. And since the body-mind-sense complex is the only entity experiencing something, and if moksha is there so that the body-mind-sense complex can experience a certain degree of freedom. Moksha is freedom. So there is a sense of experience of freedom for the body-mind to the degree that the self-knowledge was deeply retained, to the extent of purify, and more purification, and then the mind becomes a reflector that does not oscillate and change like the samsari mind. Samsari mind is all the time changing, experience a different nature of thoughts and objects, everything. And when there is nothing come from my environment because, I'm in my room and there is no electricity, but, I experience the subtle world of thoughts and objects. I don't need to dream to experience the subtle world of mental impressions. I experience when I cannot interact with the environment. So I'm experiencing all of that. If the mind is not purified by this self-knowledge program process, by jnana, the mind is going to be oscillating, and the individual is somehow attached and identified as the body-mind, and he's going to feel that I am oscillating. No? I am changing, I'm feeling disturbed and insecure and so on. So it is true. On one level, the mind is part of this world. I am free. This I is consciousness, and consciousness is free. The I is only possible within the body-mind-sense complex. Brahman never says aham, 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 aham. There is no question of aham or midam or adam for Brahman. The aham occurs within the body-mind-sense complex. So this body-mind-sense complex, unavoidably, it one day's experience, I am, I exist. And this is consciousness. If it stays put into the understanding of its true, profound, intrinsic, free nature as Purna consciousness, it's as a result, the mind that has gone there has drank from this knowledge, and then it gets a certain knowledge that stabilizes the mind, and then the fluctuations that occurs where in the environment around us, which comes with a sort of concern or this gets minimized, because the mind is deeply rooted in the sense of identity as Turiya Atma, that which is totally free and independent and in the only reality. So this is all there is to self-knowledge. So, and it has a bonus for the yani, for the inquirer, for the one gaining this knowledge. This bonus offer an element of experiential freedom, and Swami Paramarthananda puts it often in terms of I say airbag, and he says shock absorber, or mental strength, and balance, ability to receive the fluctuations of the body-mind sense complex. And then the mind, which is part of the body-mind sense complex, has drank into the source of its true nature and then interacts with the Maya nature, meaning Mitya, the world, and then that nectar of self-knowledge gives strength, because that knowledge is I am Turiya Atma, free and independent from all experience and the thoughts in respect to those experiences. Therefore, use the mind to claim your glorious consciousness, which is not dependent on anything. Gaudapada here gives us a very important message that the mind should never be included in the meaning of I. For worldly transactions, we must include the mind and the body, because I cannot go around say I consciousness, I, my name and my shape and my history, my profession, my roles in society. So worldly transaction, the body mind are included in this I, but for the sake of self-inquiry and our viveka, you should never include the mind as the I. You should never include the aham as the I. Aham is mithya. The mind is mithya. It depends on the world of objects. They merge simultaneously, together, interdependently. So know that the mind and the thoughts of the world, of this mind in respect to the world, they are not reality. They are unstable, but the knowledge of that is fully stable and secure, because it's the only reality which does not change, which is not bound by time, etc., etc. So the knowledge of one's true nature does something to the mind, and this is what we call moksha, or the fruits of a self-knowledge properly assimilated. So if we are doing this self-inquiry, we can never trust the mind. You understand? You can never trust the mind, because the mind, I see it with my student in Portuguese, in Brazil. The mind you cannot trust, because when you least expect, the mind is developing a certain sense of identity as the enlightened one. James used to call that enlightenment sickness. And then when you see it just superimpose itself on consciousness and say, oh, I am free and this and that. So we have to be careful when we do the spiritual world. We should never really say, I, the mind, am free. You understand? I, the mind, is the only source of security and purity. No, the mind is going to enjoy a certain sense of freedom and security, but to a certain extent. And that's all we get from self-knowledge. Not much more than that. A sense of freedom, a sense of security, a sense of peace. If we, before the desires and the fears and the concerns and the preoccupation were up there on level number 9, now it's in level number 1 and 2. That's all we get. You understand? And maybe some people get to 0. And when I think of such a person, I remember Ramana Maharaj, which seemed to be one of the most pure entity incarnated in this world. So in the verse 67, Gaudapada says, the mind and the world arise and dissolve together. You cannot prove the existence of one without the other. So you cannot prove the existence of the mind unless there are what? Thoughts of something connect to the world. Past experience, objects that I remember, things that I desire, things that I fear. So you can never have a thought without the world, okay? The world physically or mentally retained in my mind. So the mind and the world rise and dissolve together. Therefore, you can never prove the existence of one without the other. You can never say that one came first and the other came second, because we say that everything is cyclical in this apparent order of reality, such as the egg and the chicken. We don't know, we don't comprehend, nobody will know. It's a mystery, as it says here. The mind and the world existing independent of each other is never possible, and it will never happen. As long as the mind is awake, the world is being experienced as memories or as tangibly available before our sense. Even when the mind is partially awake, such as the dream world, partially awake, that's interesting. So it's not in deep sleep, it's not fully awake, it's partially awake. The individual is dreaming, and the dream world and the dreamer both are experienced simultaneously. When the mind is fully asleep in the awake state, the world is experienced. In deep meditation, the attempt to remove all the anathema results in sleep. And now he makes a joke. Now, everybody who is so sick and tired of the mind, and they want to see if they can experience the no mind. I know I was trying that because my mind was a mess. The mind requires it. So anybody who attempts to remove the mind and the world goes to meditation and ends up sleeping. The mind requires an object or imaginary object for its existence, okay? So you can live interacting and having thoughts in regards to the objects as they appear within your interaction, or you can just close your eyes or hanging out here and there and start or tripping, dreaming, imagining, projecting, anticipating. There are people who live in this fictional world of imagination, you understand? And to relate to people like that, from at least from my standpoint, is difficult because the person is imagining project the whole time. The whole time. So when the mind is fully asleep, the world is no longer experienced. When you are partially awake in the dream world, the dream objects are going to experience. In meditation, the person falls asleep. The mind requires an object or an imaginary object for retain its existence. Otherwise, you become a deep sleeper in which the mind as thoughts do not appear. The objects as thoughts of those objects, the subtle object, do not exist. But even in deep sleep, there is a certain entity there called prana, jiva, that somehow is still there, holding some impressions of that experience of no tangible objects. So a second example, to prove a sound, we use the ears. How do you know that you have a hearing instrument? Just imagine somebody who was born and never had this faculty available. No, it was genetic problem. And the person, how you say a person who is without the faculty of hearing?
A deaf person.
Depth. 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 Okay, I will look for it in the internet later on to see exactly how to pronounce it. If I don't see the world, it's difficult. So suppose there is a person who cannot hear, never heard anything. Or the instrument is kaput. The hearing instrument is defect. In the absence of any sound, this person will never prove that there is such a thing as a hearing instrument. So I never heard anything. Therefore, to me, a hearing instrument is a fiction. It does not have any reality to me because I have to experience the sound to know that I have a hearing instrument. Okay, so to prove the ears, you require a sound and an instrument capable of capture the sound. To prove the sound, you require good ears. Gaudapada asks which proves each one. So the ears is proving the sound, or the sound is proving invalidating the ears. So which one? No. They are interdependent. So they validate one another. Without the sound, I cannot know I have a hearing instrument. And without a hearing instrument, I never know that there are sounds, therefore I don't even know that I have a hearing instrument. Gaudapada asks which one proves one. Both are mutually dependent. And it cannot be said that one is the proof of the other. The mind and the world are not independently proved. Each one is proved because of the other. Both do not have proof for independent existence, and both are dependent. Therefore, a dependent existing principle is a Nietzsche principle, because such is that which is free from any dependence on any other factor, as we know. If I depend on the world to prove that I am a conscious existence, I am in difficulty. No, I want to understand that all there is consciousness and I am consciousness. But I depend on the world because I'm confusing the mind with consciousness. So consciousness is that which does not depend neither the mind nor the world. They both must be born in existence from something else. Yes, from I consciousness. I am that Turiya principle behind the mind and the world. The mind depends on the world depends on the mind, and I remain free and independent from the instrument and the objects experienced through the instruments. The instrument depends on the object depends on the instrument, but I remain free. We saw this in Sada Shanam also. And I think he presents that verse from this text that I do not know. Although the world and its knowledge rise and set together, it is by the knowledge alone that the world is made apparent. So the knowledge here means what? Means the ability to know, the mind, the intellect. It's by knowledge. Knowledge is a manifestation of consciousness. I often say is the chit aspect of consciousness manifests as the intellect, the knowingness principle. Although the world and its knowledge rise and set together, it is by the knowledge alone that the world is made apparent. The whole here from the world and its knowledge rise, and hearing, they say, what is this hearing? And hearing, they say, okay, here from and here in, They appear and disappear. They emerge and resolve back. The world and the knowledge of the world, they appear and disappear. But which shines without shining and setting, that alone is the real. But I consciousness is the principle that shines at all times, never rising, never setting, but the all shining Brahmana, the light of consciousness, which does not have any switch. That alone is real. That alone is Brahman Satchitananda. That alone is Turiya. I, Turiya, lend existence to this Mithya world and the Mithya mind. The Mithya mind is represented by Hiranyagarbha, okay, which is the subtle universe. No? And then in the language of Mandukya, the physical material world is represented by Virat, if I'm not wrong, huh? Which is a manifestation, physical material of the entire cosmos. So I lend existence to this Mithya world and the Mithya mind simultaneously. Lend existence to the mind is fine. But because of self-ignorance, I conclude that I am the mind. If I know that I am the user of the mind and different from the mind, then I can use it and drop it. Okay, so now, lending existence to the mind is fine, but because of self-ignorance, I conclude that I am the mind. So we are supposing here that there is, because language is very limited to explain this, which is impossible to be understood in truth. And then it says, lending existence to the mind is fine. So as if consciousness apparent lends existence to this, it does not lend, it's just magically, Maya somehow makes reflection within consciousness. Why? Because it brings about a certain how you say, such very subtle modification in consciousness, a very fine screen of Prakriti, you know, that allows it all grow, combine, develop, and then the three gunas, and then the subtle energies and elements. So all of that is superimposed, more or less like a very fine screen or holograph projection in space. So the space is allowing that. Consciousness is allowing the mind and the world. The mind is integral part of this projection or this superimposition. And then we say the space is lending existence to this projection, meaning to say the holographic projection. Nowadays they are so sophisticated. Huh? So, and then is the space really lending existence? No, the space is helpless. You know, this modern technology projects holographically things that appear to be 3D before our eyes. No? So, but it's as if lending existence to the world and the mind. So, but because of this cosmic self-ignorance, the Jiva Atma conclude that I am the mind. No? Not knowing that the mind is being supported by its adstana. No? It's based, it's a projection, it's a reflection on that which the only reality. Self-ignorance identifies I is the mind. I is the reflect consciousness that observes the thoughts, the conclusions I have, and the world before me that allows me to draw several conclusions, including philosophical, spiritual conclusions. And then it brings another concept. If I know that I'm the user of the mind, as an instrument, but I am different from the mind, then I can use the mind and drop it. Okay. So it's very beautiful, very valid. My consciousness does not use anything. The mind has two natures to itself. One is original consciousness, and the other is reflected consciousness. I can use things only as reflected consciousness. As original consciousness, I'm not a karta. I cannot do anything, much less use instruments. Okay, but the mind, as reflect consciousness, understand its true nature, can say that as if I consciousness, which is my true nature, through this instrument called the mind, I experience this world. Okay, so then consciousness has the power to use it, no, but reflect consciousness now developed a knowledge that allows it to be a wise body mind sense complex. And then you say, okay, I use this mind, but I know that the original pramana consciousness is my true nature, okay, which is not an experiencing entity, which is not a knowing entity. I know and I experience only through the mind. Okay, I consciousness, I'm not a user, I'm not a doer, I'm not an experiencer, I'm not a knower, but I as consciousness reflect in this mind, this witnessing consciousness. I'm aware of the mind and the world both as mithya and my true nature, non-experienced entity as such. And then I can say, so mind is an instrument by which my true nature, which is not an experienced entity, experience the world. Okay, I am something rather different from the mind. So therefore, I, as the pure mind, as the properly educated mind, wise mind, I have the power to engage in thoughts in respect to objects of experience, in a different manner with the help of the scriptures. We can never trust the mind, I was telling before, but we can trust the scriptures that are going to educate the mind so that the mind can become trustworthy. You understand? Because the mind is for purified by jnana, through jnana. Yeah? And then as if, no. This is a negative thought. This is a repetitive thought. This is a problematic thought. This is a problematic object of experience. I have a certain degree of viveka. No, I'm not going to go there. So I just disconnect. I developed the first D's, discrimination and dispassion. But if I make that confusion, identify with the mind, imagining that in consciousness, mind is the consciousness, I will get lost in the mind. The mind is going to get lost in samsara, and it's going to suffer. The mind alone is the cause of people's bondage and suffering. And the same mind that causes bondage and suffering, that same mind is responsible for knowledge and liberation. This is Amarta Bindu Upanishad. This is a beautiful angle that points to the fact that it is the mind. The mind alone can save us. The mind cannot be destroyed, should never be destroyed. The mind under the spell of ignorance is going to be bound to samsara and suffer. The mind under the spell of the scriptural wisdom revealed directly from Brahman, that mind is going to purify and have a sense of liberation from samsara, the world of attribution to reality, to projections that change, appear, disappear from moment to moment, that offer nothing. It's just like a chair made out of paper, old newspaper, not even cardboard, old newspaper. They just spray it with something. Don't come even close. Don't even bend it a little bit. Yeah? It's the same mind. The mind becomes heavy and burdened under the spell of ignorance. And what is the ignorance? The mind and the world are real. And the world of objects serves to refine my mind, purify my mind, and make my mind a happy mind. Therefore, this ignorance is going to make life's experience to be a burden, heavy. External situations can be handled by getting away from them. But when the mind itself is a problem, what will not work? Because the mind allows me, wherever I go, I will take in my mind. This is another important, beautiful aspect of Swamiji's expression. He says, like, if you want to minimize the sense of burden within your human experience, so just take a plan and go to Rishikesh and spend a couple of months there, or Tiruvannamalai, or go to Hawaii and enjoy nature and the sea. And says, if the problem would really be in the world, and not the thoughts about the world, because the same world may appear to be beautiful, magic place, filled with opportunities in all levels, but the same world may appear to be a very threatening and dangerous place. So if you have a problematic mind, you're going to experience the world as a burden, a load to be carried. And then immediately we pointed to the external circumstances and situation. Oh, it's because of this, because of that, because of the economy, because I don't like this place, blah, blah, blah. I don't like the people around me, I don't like the house, anything, to boom, 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 and say, okay, now let's have a trip. And then it says, if the problem was really in the external world, it would be easy. You just change your environment. You just travel all the time. Get away from that place that's making you suffer. But the tragedy, that the problem is not in the objects of the world. The problem is in the mind. What we do about those thoughts. Because when you say assim, oh, this is a farm, and then a farm is here, and the thought of a farm, this is a ranch, and so this is a dog, this is a cat. But then the human being is going to superimpose an enormous complexity of likes and dislikes and interpretations and commentaries about those thoughts which are faithful to the object on the consensual level. That complexity of interpretations is what we call the character or the personality of the person. The person is going to have either a happy mind or problematic, heavy mind. So he's saying external situation can be handled by getting away, but more often than not, it's not a question of moving away from your karma, although sometimes it may be helpful. Because if you're caught up in a certain relationship that cannot be improved, sometimes it's better just move away from that city, that nation, or that relationship with that person and this and that. Just go and make a test. Go. Stay 6 months, 1 year in a different environment. Get away. And then you see if the problem was the environment, and then you're going to start feeling improvement. But the problem is the mind. The mind, I cannot leave it there. No, I'm going to go now to this beautiful place, an island in Asia, paradise, and so on. But the mind is something that I cannot leave home. Have you ever tried to leave the mind home? No, it's not possible. It follows us as my own shadow. Therefore, one should learn to detach from the mind. How am I going to have a detachment from the mind? It's basically impossible to detach from the mind. What is possible is to educate the mind, to make the mind to see this apparent order of reality in the light of the teachings of Vedanta. Educate the mind to understand that this apparent order is maintained, retained, sustained by certain laws and principles that need to be observed. Understand that more than just gaining things of this world, superior to that is to gaining maturity, spiritual maturity, and refinement and purification. Understand that the final goal is self-knowledge and moksha. Now, mind is suffering because it's totally under the spell of ignorance. And ignorance, when we talk about ignorance, a lot of the time people say, Swami Paramananda say, ignorance is self-ignorance. I prefer to say, all this problem is due to spiritual ignorance. Yeah. Self-ignorance is the culmination of this process, this spiritual elevation process that concludes itself with the understanding that I am the spirit, I am consciousness, I am the only reality. But before we get to self-knowledge as the only remedy to cancel self-ignorance, we need to develop spiritual ignorance, which is the complete wisdom. Wisdom in respect to this mithya order, apparent mithya order of reality, meaning to say wisdom in respect to Ishvara Jiva Jagat, and that is going to allow me to live more happily because I'm conforming my life with my apparent life, with the apparent laws and principles, this apparent creator, and then I am already living much happier. And then furthermore, I get qualified to remove or cancel self-ignorance by getting self-knowledge. So you can only educate, purify, refine, replace ignorance by knowledge, and then you're going to have a good mind. Detaching from the mind is the way yogis go, by trying to suppress the mind without educating the mind properly. You understand, Mark?
Yes. Yeah, what I realize is the state of the world locally around me is directly related to the state of my mind. So if I'm in a good place, the world around me is good and happy and treats me as such. If I'm in a bad place mentally, the world is firing at me. Do you know what I mean? It's coming at me as well. So yeah, they can't be separated, the world and the mind. Absolutely.
And we cannot change the world. We can go from one house to another, one seat to another, one friend to another, but finally enough, we cannot change the world. And the world, we are going through Kali Yuga. So the only thing is spiritual wisdom, a mind properly educated in this spiritual wisdom, spiritual knowledge, which includes self-knowledge at the very end of it. Based on the dream experience, Gaudapada Acharya arrives at the very profound conclusion that the entire creation consists of a complementary pair, mind and the world, that occurs independently, simultaneously. He says a profound conclusion, because it's really profound. The entire creation at any level, this physical, Vyavaharika, or any other subtle level, meaning to say awakening world, dream world, and whatsoever dimensional worlds, they have this pair of a complementary, the mind, the instrument experience that realm or that dimension of experience. They are mutually always dependent on each other. Both do not have existence on their own. It appears like as the mind gets existence from the world gets existence from the mind because they are interdependent. No, it's not that way. They indeed depend on one another, but fundamentally both depends on what? On Turiya. All pair of opposites depends on consciousness. the superimposition that occurs in consciousness. Although the mind and the world are not a pair of opposites, but forget about that analogy, but any phenomenon, even when we say that two principles, they depend on one another. So the mind depends of the world for its existence. The existence of the world depends on the mind. It gives an impression that they depend on one another. It's in psychology, people in the old days used to call codependence, understand codependence, and see if you understand codependence, and then you're gonna be free and independent. No, codependence is dependence. It's just that I'm not dependent on you alone, you know? So you depend on me and better you behave. I behave, you behave, okay? So we move somehow, yeah, on codependence. If I see that the other is not depending on me, and then concern comes, oh my God. So I'm gonna be alone on this dependence. No, the mind and the world depend on one another, but fundamentally, they both depend on Turiya, the only reality. This is the Mithya game, that the Mithya pair, mind and world, is playing, mind and the world, mind and world. And we can go to other levels of this mutual dependence, codependence. We experience the world, and the world comes with thoughts in respect to whatever objective experience I have. When I come as a babe, I don't have conscious thoughts. The thoughts are compressed as vasanas. And then I have my vasanas, and then I have the culture that is going to further educate me in more fundamental ignorance, you know. The world is real, and you have to go and get things, you know, and blah, 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 and you are this, you are that. So, but then I don't, this is good, okay? This is good, yes. So this is a source of rich and happiness. Why? Because it's money. You have to get a lot of money. You understand? So this is good. Okay, that is bad. You see that one there? That's bad. It's a sannyas sitting in meditation, a sage. This is bad. Those parasites, you know, they don't add anything to society. So the mind is going to be further educated in ignorance. And it appears that the mind, you know, is without any thought. It's compressed in the causal body. And then the objects and the culture are going to bring to the surface at certain age our own tendencies, you know, our thoughts. And then that cocktail, you know, is going to develop a new personality, a new mind, a new character. So in which way the mind is feeding into the world and the world is feeding into my mind? We know that the mind is a byproduct of our interaction with the physical world. Even the dream world seems to be a byproduct of the impressions I collect in my waking world. But in which way this world is programming my mind? You know, my mind depends on the world. Yes, because the world is changing, new cultures, new concepts, you know, and so on. And the mind can be very easily molded. This is the entire process of mind control, of social engineering that exists since forever. Every society has its way to control the mind of the mass, because the purpose is to control the mass. So the mind is a byproduct of whatever vasanas or tendencies I brought with me, but more fundamentally, my interaction with my environment, experience. Genetics and experiences molding my mind again and again. And experience is so complex nowadays that it's also colored by the narratives of the way things are and should be. So you get more and more notions and concepts that are going to be given to you because you want to be politically correct. You want to think together with the group. Yeah? So, and then the word is conditioning my mind. My mind depends on the word, and I'm supporting the word because my mind is going to be one more mind say, yes, this is what it is, that is what it is. We have to get this. We have to turn the government for the right side, the left side. All these pairs are there, and everybody's trying to somehow have an impact in the world through my mind. The mind is going to impact the world, okay? If the entire humanity would develop a mind that truly and genuinely wants to live a total dictatorship, you know, Ishwara is going to say, so be it. You understand? So be it. I'm a facilitator here. So now we're going to have the entire planet living under a totalitarian regime. So they feed on one another all the time. The collective mind is going to provide Ishwara with whatsoever humanity as a whole wishes, and Ishwara is going to say, okay, be careful with what you wish. Be careful. And it depends on one another. But we have a little bit more trouble to understand that both the mind and the world as is being supported by that, which allows it display, he says this in the play of Maya. Yeah? This play of Maya goes on. And consciousness is allowing all of that. It's a Mithya game. This Mithya game is the mind and the world as it's playing, and the world is impacting the mind is impacting the world because the minds of each individual are going to make the collective mind is present to the Ishwara system. Ishwara system says, so be it. You want to have it, have it. Once we understand this game of Maya, we are going to be able not to be anymore trapped. But we need to understand the game. And this game, if not understood, leads to a miserable life. How does that happen? Both the mind and the world do not have existence on their own. It's not trying to, no, I want to think correctly here now so that I can influence other people because, you know, I'm politically on this side or that side. I believe in this ism or that ism, and I believe if we do a revolution, and then we're going to impact positively the world. No, the only way you can impact positively this world is with spiritual wisdom. The world is breaking down because this spiritual wisdom has been suppressed over the centuries to the point that not even in India you find much of this presented and valued by its people anymore. The revolution is a revolution of wisdom, spiritual knowledge. That's why it's important if we do any work, is the work of self-inquiry, self-knowledge, with the hope that Ishwara at the end say, no, okay, let the light spread. There are more people doing this work. Sometimes we want to do the most fundamental work only when things are really bad, you know. And then we say, no, I mean, there is no way we're going to be happy here. Whatsoever part is in power or government is in power, there's no really way here. The fundamental problem is spiritual ignorance, materialism, power, a desire for control, power, and all of that. I am the one empowering the mind, consciousness. I am empowering the mind, and this mind can empower the world. How so? By becoming a beautiful mind is going to have an impact on this difficult, problematic world. Okie dokie, we stop here. We carry on tomorrow. Anything else? Any comments? Any complaints?
No complaints. It's a lovely satsang this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okie dokie. So tomorrow again, same time, same meet same planet. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Okie dokie. Till tomorrow. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Mark.